All right. So for advanced settings, each of the people that are going to be using this to manage users to set them up in their particular groups or departments, they will have this admin portal access here. A lot of this probably will not be showing because it'll just be based on the permissions that we provide you just for the user front. So you won't have a phone system side or a meeting side. You probably will have reports though, as well as the users tab, which will be the main ones you're going to be focusing on anyways. So without further ado, I'm going to go into some of the more advanced settings to set certain things like a default outbound caller ID or things like that, which basically just means that whenever they dial out either from the application or from a desk phone, what number or what option is going to be displayed when they dial out, okay? So under the users tab, you will be able to see everybody in the organization with their extension number, their direct number, and so forth. Anybody that has a red X means that their extension has been disabled or hasn't been set up properly yet. So don't worry about those as much. The main ones you're going to focus on are the ones that actually have the green check marks beside their name. That means that they've registered a password and their number is live and they're using their extension as intended. Okay. So in the event that you want to set any settings on behalf of users so that way it's more in standards with what your group is going to be, there's going to be a section on the left-hand side here called templates. So this templates is what you can use to modify multiple users at once based on certain extension settings or parameters. So when I go here, the one I'm going to be focusing on for the most part is the user settings one. So when I go into user settings, I do have a couple of templates that were set up here for that. But if you do want to add your own department there for that, let's say if it's for the medical office or for social workers, whatever the case is for it, we can just hit add user settings template. And we'll label it for say, we'll label it, let's just say medical offices. Okay. So then when I hit save here, there'll be a new option that comes up and it'll automatically give me that one that I want to start modifying. So inbound options are whenever somebody calls a particular extension in that group, what settings do you want applied for them? So there'll be some things that we can look at here. Template information, this part is just more the name of the template and when it was last modified and who modified it. Not really pertinent for you guys if you're going to be looking at it, but it just goes to show what kind of detail you can get in terms of that part of it. User details. So this gets into some of the more settings and permissions. By default, it is set to the central time zone, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. If everybody in the department works a specific set of hours, whether it's 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever the case is, you can set those hours for those extensions so that way their phones only ring during that time and go from there. Roles is their sets of permissions. So don't worry about this one as much, but basically the standard permissions just allows them to access their own extension settings and nothing other outside of the system. User groups, disregard that. Confirmation message, disregard that. If you do want to fill in their job title for their virtual business card on the system, you can do that if you wish, but not really necessary. Under the phones side of things, there's a couple of different things that you can do with this. With the appearance option, you can choose to have a particular what's called a presence key or busy lamp field for everybody that needs to monitor a particular line or service or something like that. Might not be needed in this case here, but it's more for those that actually have desk phones. The heads-up display on the application itself is a lot more customizable. So permissions, again, not to worry about that. The only other thing that I was probably going to be concerned about was just the emergency address, but I should have this already set universally to be the new location for you guys. So in the event someone does have to dial 911 from the application or from the phone itself, it will register with the appropriate address if something is going on at the actual clinic there.
Cool. Okay, good.
Okay. Bandwidth settings, again, don't worry about that part of it. This is just more for back-end networking stuff. This isn't a huge priority at the moment. Okay, so I'll shrink out of that. Screening, greeting, and hold music. So this part of it is getting into when people call their extension, how do you want it to sound? This is under the so when it comes to that part of it, what it'll be is there'll be a default setting where it'll say please hold while I connect you, and then it'll go into some actual music when it goes to connect to the actual person. If you don't want those options enabled and you just want a standard ringtone option, how you set that up is you uncheck this connecting message option, and then you change this music to be just a ringtone. So that way it's just a little bit more standardized and a little bit more familiar. So how you would do that is when you click edit down below here, you'll be presented with this window, and then there's an option to just hit ringtones.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just makes it so it just rings as per normal.
So no music.
Okay. Yeah. And then in order to make sure that they are applied for those users, make sure you check off override user settings for both, because you're modifying it to override what they currently have set up. Hold music wise, this is for when the caller is on hold, what kind of music that is going to be playing there. Again, you can choose to either have it just be a silent hold, which is just music, or which is just dead air. You can choose to have music if you wish, if you want to standardize. There are options to do pre-recorded greetings through a third party if you want to go that route. But that's all totally different there. But that's what that hold music is referring to, is when you have that caller on hold, what do you want it to sound like? So then once you want to modify those settings, you make sure you hit save here, because any changes that you do make when you go out of that section, it will not update. So make sure that you do save it. So that way, if you do need, so that way when you go to apply it, you make sure that it's set to the standard that you want it to be.
Question. So once we've updated these, or changed them rather, and we say override user settings, are they able to then go into their own and change them back? Or because we're changing them in the admin section and overriding them, they'll stay that way?
So at that instance, when you go to apply this template to the users, what'll happen is that they'll get a notification saying, hey, these settings have been overridden, but they can go back and change them if they wish.
Okay.
It's just to standardize it across the board if you want them all to be the same.
Okay.
Okay. Under the call handling and forwarding section, there will be a couple of settings here. This is just more going to be a default for anybody who's using the application, how long you want it to ring for. Not to worry about this one too much, because the app will still ring as long as it's necessary. But if you do want to have it so that way anybody who is actually using the application, you can set it to be a standard, say 4 rings for everybody. You can do that. Just make sure, again, when you do it, you would check off override user settings and then save it. And then last but not least, under the messages section here, this will be to change anything from the default voicemail greeting to a standardized one that you guys have recorded for the user. If you don't want certain people to actually have voicemail access, all you have to do is just uncheck the enable take messages option, and then you can choose to have it play a greeting and disconnect the call. Because I know in some places they don't want to have a voicemail being left. So all they just want to do is they just want an announcement that says, well, I'm sorry, I'm not available at this time. Please try your call again later. So you can do something like that across the board. So that way it does that. Again, when you do that, make sure that you hit override user settings to make sure that you do apply it to those individual users that do not need a voicemail. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you save that, so that'll be more for your inbound settings that you do see that for. When it comes to the outbound caller ID, there's a separate tab out here that's labeled as outbound. So now you'll notice that the settings change for that to be something completely different, okay? So the one that we're gonna focus on for the most part is going to be the caller ID setting, okay? So in this case, because we are dealing with medical offices, you don't want people to try and return a call back. You can choose one of 2 options for the outbound caller ID. You can, when you go to hit edit here for this one, you will be presented with a couple of options here. One of them will be a toll-free number. Another will be the direct number for the user itself, or another company number, or it will show another option for the 784-4090 number for the main number of clinic. You can use that if you wish. But for those that need to make sure that they have a blocked caller ID, make sure you hit blocked. And then again, override user settings. There's other features down here that have the same sort of deal for that. Again, if you want to make sure that everything is set up accordingly, you can just choose to edit each one of these to be blocked across the board. You know, things like that. A lot of these are going to be more for internal features, like if you're trying to flip a call from your desktop app to a cell phone number or something like that. But other things when it comes to, say, the mobile app, if they are using it outside of the organization, the default caller ID will be set to whatever you choose here. Again, making sure that you hit override user settings along the way to do so. And then again, caller ID name, don't worry about this part of it, because if it's going to be blocked, this is not going to be something that we're going to have on anyways. So yeah, don't worry about that part of it.
I feel like most of our numbers are blocked. I'd say like 95% of them are blocked.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So like, should we just do it group by group, or should we teach people how to do it in their own settings? Or like, how would you recommend we go about blocking all the numbers so it's like not taking forever?
The easiest way is if you want to set it up on their behalf, you can just apply this template universally to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
In order to do that, because then when they go to use it, it's going to automatically do it anyways.
Yeah, and if there's a couple
there's no interaction on their end to do it.
Okay.
I think that's the plan.
Because otherwise, what will happen is it'll default to the toll-free number for clinic, which will just go through to the main menu. But some people are not as inclined to answer toll-free number calls because it's either a scam call or a collections agency or whatever the case is, right? Yeah. So just something to keep in mind when it comes to that. So if you can, just make sure by phone is the most important feature that you want to worry about for that, because it'll also include the desktop application in that group. Okay. And again, when you have everything that you want to have set up, make sure you hit save here. Okay. So you've gotten to the point where you've set up everything that where you want it for your settings. Now you want to go and apply it to those users. Okay. Right. So what you'll do here is you'll close this off. So it'll go back to the main page that you had there before you went and set up your settings that way. You'll notice that there is an actions column here with a 3 dots icon. Mm-hmm. So if we're applying the one for the medical office team, we hit the 3 dots for that particular template because it'll be highlighted in a shadier gray than the rest of it, so you know which one you're going to apply, which is a nice indicator. When you go here, you're going to choose apply for the template, okay? Now what this does is it actually comes up with all of the users and everything else in the organization that you want to apply these settings to, okay? So you can choose to do it a few at a time, or you can start searching them by name. So if I wanted to add, say, Kathy, I can do that. If I wanted to add Celicia, I could do that. Check them off. Same thing for Charlene. And then as you check them off, it'll add them to your selected list here when you go along. And then so if you want to get an overview as to who you've selected for that, you just click over to this tab and then clear off the search box, and then you'll see who you've actually selected to do that. So you can know who you've got in there and who you still need to add in terms of that.
Awesome.
So if you're going to go back and add more people, hit show all, keep your search, keep typing in your search names and keep adding it to your selected list, okay? So now, once you have all of your people that you want to apply the settings for, you're going to hit apply here. And what that does is it's going to confirm you want to make sure you want to override these settings for these selected users. This will pretty much undo any changes they would have made on their extension beforehand. Are you sure you want to continue? So you hit continue. What will happen is that you'll actually will choose to get a template notification email. So it will go to the system administrator by default, which will be IT. But you can choose to add yourself here as well. And then you have the option of notifying each user that a template has been applied to your extension based on the following settings. So you can choose to do that. You can choose not to do that. It's totally up to you, but the option is there. So then if I wanted to make sure that I added my email to it to let me know that the settings have been applied, to let you know whether it succeeded or failed, I'll add my email here just to give an idea. Okay. So then once I've done that, I go ahead and hit apply template. So now it'll say operation has been completed. I will get an email within say 10 to 30 seconds for it to let me know that it has been successfully applied to the following people. If there are any that failed, it'll actually spill out a spreadsheet for me to let me know why it failed for those particular things, and go from that. So I'm gonna write that. Okay, so here's that email. So as soon as I open this here is, yeah, so it has been successfully applied to 2 users. So, because we only selected 2 people, everything went through without a hitch. There was no problem there. But again, you have this attachment spreadsheet here to look at the report of it to find out if any did fail, what was the reason why it failed. But again, you can see here, we applied it to Charlene and Celicia. Result was success for each of them.
Oh, okay. It's nice too to do that just to keep track of what you've done, especially when it's so hectic.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's the best way to do it because, and the way that the system reports are generated, it's definitely very granular about it, because you could do things like if you're trying to apply email addresses to certain things like message notifications or anything like that, it'll actually let you know, oh, this email address is invalid for whatever reason. And then it'll tell you what you put in as the email address, and you can see your mistake right away.
Cool.
Any questions about that?
No.
Nope.
I will maybe, but no.
Not at the moment. Have I actually missed anything that you guys need to know for when you guys are starting to set up these users?
Like I'm wondering if like the 4090 number, is that going to be called something? Like, is it going to be Kathy Trojan's name? Is it, you know what I mean, Felicia?
Yeah, right.
No. So what'll happen is that particular number is not going to reside on a particular user. It's going to sit at what's called the auto receptionist level.
Okay.
So, or the company level, meaning it's going to be a universally available outbound public caller ID for anybody that does want to set it to that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Question answered. Yeah.
So kind of similar to how you saw the 784-4087 number, that there will be another option for the 4090 number in that list too, aside from blocked and toll free and all that.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Does that answer that question for 4090?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a universal user.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are some organizations that choose to have their direct number shown up for the users if they want to directly contact them again. Other organizations will have direct numbers assigned, but they want the main number to be showed for them, so they can just funnel back to the front desk and they can be transferred to them. You know, in terms of that, there's a lot of flexibility that can be put into the system for it. So.
Okay. Ethan, is there an environment set up where we could kind of go in and play around with this?
So this environment that I'm showing you here, this is the one that you're going to use. So whatever you build up, this will be what you can use to apply before the cutover happens. So this is technically your sandbox to build everything up. And even if you decide to make changes down the road, you can still use this to do that. It's not going to really break anything, because all you're really doing is just a couple settings changes.
Okay. So how do we access this? Are we given a certain
So what'll happen is I will send you guys your own welcome email so you can set things up accordingly.
Okay.
And then I'll also set you up with the admin access, so that way when you do have your password and PIN number set up, you can just log in with your own extension and make the changes yourselves through your own. So that way you're not using a generic admin login for anything.
All right.
Okay, and I think I have most of your email addresses updated. I will double check that before I send your invites. But I will start sending those out to you guys so that we can take a look through them.
Perfect. And would you be able to send the link to this video as well so we could reference it? So we could go in and
Yeah, so I'll send you the 2 videos for that.
Okay.
So one will be labeled the actual user activation part. The other one will be the advanced template settings that I'll do for that. So I will
Great.
make sure that I do both of those for you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to clarify. Okay, so for the 4090 number, we're going to have a bunch of different people answering that. They would log into TELUS Business Connect as themselves and they would have access to that number?
Yes.
Okay, so they would basically see in their settings, like it would just start ringing if anyone started calling the 4090.
Yeah, I believe we were setting up a call tree for that first. I'll
Mhm.
have to confirm a couple things with that as well. And then they have the option if they want to reach reception, they can press 0 or 1 or something like that. I know we were looking at a couple of revised options. I think you were on that one too,
Yes, I
Charlene.
was.
Where we were, yeah. So whatever people call 4090, it's going to go through that call tree first, and then they have the option of choosing where they want to go.
Okay. And then if they want to speak with the front desk reception, then it would just...
Yeah, whatever option is for that. I believe it's either option 3 or
Yeah,
option 0,
there
one of the
needs to be
two.
several
It was
people
0.
connected to that number, right? Like there'll be several people in the organization that will be using the 409 number. So will they have to share a PIN to log in, or I think that was kind of.
No, not necessarily. They'll probably be part of what's called a call queue in order to do that. If we're going to have more than one person answer the call.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll still log in as their own extension. So it'll be kind of similar to how the crisis room has their setup, where they'll be tied to a queue. And any call that comes in can either ring simultaneously or it can hop from person to person based on who's available at the time. So that kind of gives a better way in order for those calls to be handled. If you do need to have that set up, I can certainly, if you can let me know who's going to be actually answering those reception calls when they come in, I can certainly get that all set up for you guys, so that way it's ready to go. Because I think there was going to be an option too where you can only have so many people call in, and then you want it to go to either a busy signal or a message saying that all callers are currently busy. Right?
Essentially, I think there's only one person answering the front desk phone at a time.
Okay.
It'll just be different people at different times.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I believe there's a generic login just for the reception one that I have set up for that, which is just a generic password for it. So if someone is taking over that position, so say if someone works from 8 to noon and the other person's working from noon to 4, something like that, they would just need to make sure that they set themselves as do not disturb or something like that, and then it'll automatically go to a voice to a greeting that'll say, we're not able to take your call right now, please try your call again later, things like that, right? So
Right.
does that make sense for everything that we've got set up there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You look a little puzzled, Felicia.
Well, I
What's on your
think
mind?
I'm the type of person I need to use it to understand it. So I think once I start using it, then I'll probably have more questions for you, or maybe not. You know.
Okay, no, that's totally fair. And you guys have my contact information anyways. So if there are any questions that do come up after these meetings, certainly send me an email. But the majority of this call is to record any of those questions on this, so that way if anybody else has those same questions, they can just reference this material.
Right. Yeah. I think you went through the basics, which I think is helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send out both video links. So when I have them properly processed and uploaded, it does take a little bit of time to do that. But I shall have them to you guys at some point today.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody good now? Charlene, you don't have anything else?
I think that's all I could think of for now. I think once we're in it and playing around with it and getting people used to the system, then it'll probably seem a little bit easier. Because I've seen the crisis lines and how they queue calls and how that operates, so I have that knowledge at least. So it's just figuring out how we want our front reception to be answering these lines, and if they just want to use the 4090 account just to answer that line, or if they want to have it sent to their extension. So I guess we'll just have to
Okay.
figure that out.
I don't even know if they'll have
For
an
sure.
extension, to be honest. Like,
I don't think they
we don't
do.
have them now. So, like,
No.
I mean, people basically only use the front desk number. They don't have their own extension. So that'll simplify things.
Okay, so then
I
it'll
think
probably
it'll
be
be
So
similar
they'll
to.
just be logging into
login.
that one extension just
Yeah.
to help simplify
Yeah.
things anyway.
Yeah.
So
Okay, okay, then that.
okay. Erin, do you have anything?
No,
No, you're good to go now.
I'm good. Yep.
Alicia?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, awesome. 12 minutes are back in your day, guys.
Right on.
All right, okay.
That's
Thanks.
it.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you,
awesome.
Ethan.
I'll have these both recorded, and then I'll send you guys the links when they're all done here.